Nestled against the rugged, untamed wilderness of Alaska's southern coast lies the desolate ghost town of Portlock. Once a thriving hub of industry, this small village boasted a busy cannery and a bustling port that catered to the fishing and mining industries. Its inhabitants carved out a living amidst the imposing natural beauty of towering mountains, dense forests, and mist-shrouded shores. Yet beneath its industrious facade lurked a dark, unspoken fear, a terror so profound that it led to the village's eventual abandonment. Portlock was no ordinary settlement. Its geographic isolation demanded resilience and ingenuity from its residents. They endured relentless winters where snow buried the landscape and icy winds howled through the dense forests. The surrounding wilderness was both a boon and a bane, offering abundant resources but also concealing untold dangers. While the village thrived for a time, whispers of unease began to permeate the community. A sense of dread clung to the air, growing more pronounced with each passing year. Today, Portlock is a skeletal shadow of its former self. Rusted remnants of cannery equipment lie scattered among the underbrush, mining tunnels gape like forgotten wounds in the earth, and the remains of buildings sag under the weight of years. The once bustling port, where fishing boats docked with their bountiful hauls, is now eerily quiet, reclaimed by nature. The village is a ghostly tableau of decay, its silence broken only by the rustle of leaves and the distant cries of birds. Official accounts suggest the town was deserted in the 1950s due to its remote location and economic hardships. But locals tell a far more chilling tale, one that intertwines with the legend of Nantinak, a monstrous Sasquatch-like creature whose presence may have driven the townsfolk to flee in desperation. The tales of Nantinak, pronounced Nantinuk, have been whispered among native Alaskans for generations. This creature, often described as a shadowy figure with immense size and strength, was no benign forest dweller. Unlike other Sasquatch legends that cast the being as elusive but non-threatening, Nantinak was feared as a predator, a cunning and malevolent presence capable of both abduction and slaughter. The name itself, derived from the Dena'ina word meaning those who steal people, is a grim reminder of the creature's terrifying reputation. According to lore, it was not merely an inhabitant of the wilderness, but a malevolent force, deeply intertwined with the land's mysteries. Portlock's troubles began as early as the 1900s. Residents reported strange occurrences in the surrounding wilderness, guttural growls that reverberated through the fog, dark figures glimpsed darting between the trees, and an unsettling sensation of being watched. The forest, dense and ancient, seemed alive with secrets. These eerie experiences might have been dismissed as the product of overactive imaginations. But then the disappearances began. Hunters, miners, and lumbermen would venture into the forest and never return. The few who were found offered no closure. Bodies discovered bore signs of violent attacks as if torn apart by a creature of unimaginable strength. In 1905, native Alaskan workers at the cannery abandoned their posts en masse, refusing to return for nearly a year. Though they eventually resumed work, unease hung heavy over the village. Throughout the 1920s, the accounts grew more disturbing. Trees, massive and ancient, were found uprooted and flung aside as if by a colossal hand. Enormous footprints measuring over 18 inches were often discovered near scenes of struggle, patches of matted grass, deep gouges in the earth, and the remains of animals dragged toward the mountains. The forest, already a formidable adversary, now seemed to take on a sinister persona. Hunters began to speak of areas where even animals refused to roam. There were places where silence reigned, a silence so absolute it was described as deafening, as though the land itself held its breath. One of the most baffling and chilling events occurred in 1931 when Andrew Kamluck, a local logger, was found dead under circumstances that defied explanation. His skull had been crushed by an enormous piece of logging equipment far too heavy for any human to lift unaided. Even more perplexing, Kamluk's body was discovered far from the machinery, as if it had been flung there. The unnatural violence of his death only deepened the town's fear. As the years passed, more bodies were discovered, mutilated and dismembered in ways that suggested an assailant of terrifying strength. One particularly gruesome find was a hunter's remains, retrieved from a lagoon. The body had been torn apart with such ferocity that even seasoned woodsmen were left shaken. By the 1940s, fear had seeped into every corner of Portlock. The local schoolteacher recounted how children and adults alike avoided the forest, speaking in hushed tones about the creature lurking just beyond the edge of their world. Stories of the beast's haunting growls and ominous footprints grew more frequent. The unease was palpable, as though the entire village stood on the brink of some unnameable disaster. One by one, families began to leave. By 1949, Portlock's population had dwindled to a handful of residents. The final straw came in 1950 when the town's post office officially closed its doors. Those who fled sought refuge in nearby towns like Nanwalek and Seldovia, leaving their homes behind to be reclaimed by the wilderness. Now overgrown and abandoned, Portlock remains a haunting monument to its dark past. Visitors to the area report an unsettling atmosphere, a heavy, oppressive feeling that seems to permeate the air. Locals from neighboring villages still speak of Nantinak with a mix of fear and reverence, warning against venturing too far into the surrounding woods. Theories abound as to what truly happened in Portlock. Was it a series of natural but tragic accidents that became magnified by local superstition? Or was there truly a malevolent presence stalking the town's inhabitants? Scientists have speculated about the psychological effects of isolation and harsh wilderness conditions, but no explanation has fully dispelled the unease surrounding Portlock's history. Some researchers have delved into cryptozoology, suggesting that Nantinak might belong to a previously undocumented species, an ancient predator that thrived in the remote wilderness. Others point to the rich oral traditions of native Alaskans, arguing that the legend of Nantinak is a warning against encroaching on sacred lands. The story of Portlock endures as a chilling reminder of the untamed power of Alaska's wilderness. The line between myth and reality blurs in this remote and fog-laden land, where human presence feels transient and insignificant. Whether Nantinak was real or a manifestation of collective fear, its legend remains a powerful cautionary tale. Portlock stands as a stark warning for those daring enough to explore Alaska's forgotten corners. Some mysteries are best left undisturbed. In the shadows of the wilderness, something ancient and unexplained may yet linger, waiting, watching, and guarding the secrets of a haunted past.